We have an absolutely jam-packed show for everyone today. We're going to be talking about the legacy that Detroit Lions center, longtime Detroit Lions center Frank Ragnow is leaving behind. We're going to get a preview of both the NBA Finals and the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. We're also, of course, going to be talking about the Detroit Tigers as well as the West Michigan Whitecaps. But we're going to begin today, of course, talking about Frank Ragnow. Dean and Andy, thank you both so much for stopping by. It was earlier this week, I think it was yesterday even, by the time we're recording this, obviously. Earlier in the week, Frank Ragnow on social media announced that he would be stepping away from the game after 7 years. We know we've been covering this team and following this team for a very long time. Obviously, we know Ragnow's injury history, his kind of ability to overcome some of those injuries. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro second team selection. This is going to leave a really big hole for the Lions, especially in one of the key positions on the field.
Yeah, no question about that. Frank is just one of those players that, only at 29 years old,
Yeah.
he kind of, with all the accolades that you just mentioned, he might have been on his way to having a Hall of Fame career. So for him to step down, I'm sure it was probably somewhat injury related. He was the kind of guy that played through a bunch of injuries. He did the past 2 seasons just to be on the field. And also, if you're a part of the Lions organization, which until Dan Campbell took over as the head coach, this team was never really that competitive for the playoffs, and he's kind of been around. I remember when they talked about the old regime, when they first won the NFC North, when Dan called all them up in the locker room, he was one of the guys. So, yeah, it must have been something where he just can't get through it. I think the thing that's really surprising is some of these offensive linemen do play past that age. Mm-hmm. I think when you are an offensive lineman in the NFL, you kind of accept that your body is going to permanently never be at 100% once you're done playing. So if it is injury related, obviously I'm not a doctor. I don't know the information fully. I'm guessing it's something around those lines. It doesn't really surprise me that it happened with all the injuries that he's been fighting through the past couple of years, because the Lions are still a Super Bowl contending team. Even without him now, they still are. But losing both coordinators and stuff like that, I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but it's just a crazy time of the year for him to step down. But maybe that's why the Lions made the draft picks they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to agree with that. Obviously it leaves some gaps now, right, on the offensive line. So, what are they going to do? What moves are they going to make? Are they going to move Graham Glasgow over to center now? Are they going to start Tate Rutledge? There's just some question marks now surrounding that offensive line. And, listening to some, sports talk radio things the last 24 hours here, they think it's going to limit their ability to, run the ball. Jared Goff, is he going to be as effective with a new offensive line? It's going to take, obviously, some time for a new offensive line to gel and get those reps in. So, yeah, lots of question marks surrounding it. I was surprised by it, to be honest with you. I know he's had the injuries, like you said, Andy, a 7-year career. A center does a lot out there, and he's just, battled with those injuries. And so, surprising, but, if I'm knowing Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, the way that they get their players prepared, for success, I think they're going to be good in the long run.
Yes, the center's like a quarterback. So
right.
when you lose that, they touch the ball just as much as the quarterback every single play. So when you lose that position on the field, it's a lot bigger than people think. The Lions obviously still have 2 of the best tackles in the league, but where they, all I've heard is, Tate Rutledge will probably just slide over. It'll be Glasgow. Neither one of those guys are, until they get through 4 or 5 games, which is, we've talked about their schedule, they're not the easiest first 4 or 5 games. Until they get some actual game action in, I don't think it's just going to be that easy of a transition. So it's definitely a huge loss right now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, the question becomes, not only obviously somebody's going to fill that position, but can they sort of step into Ragnow's shoes and, perform at the level that he was playing at? That's going to be the big question, I think, going forward. And, there's talk about the Lions and how they're going to handle this schedule, the injuries from last year, kind of coming off a disappointing end to the season. Would they maybe take a step back? And honestly, with the loss of one of your key contributors, it kind of is spelling that it could possibly be that way for the Lions in 2025.
Yeah, it's hard to not imagine it going that way. I kind of still think the record that I did state originally 11-6 is possible. Mm-hmm. Not sure how you. Dean, you were the one that was high on them winning the division. Does this change your opinion at all?
No,
you get a fair chance here to take that back.
No, I'm not taking it back. They're still going to win the North. Minnesota's still going to finish last.
That's fair enough, but
it's last. Okay,
last. Wow. Okay.
Just kidding.
All right.
No. There's a lot of people that are picking the Vikings to be the team to not make the playoffs this year that made it last year. So I don't think that's impossible either if J.J. McCarthy doesn't work out. But yeah, back to Ragnow. It's just when you lose that kind of a player, yeah, it's a huge deal. And the other thing with the Lions is they don't have a lot of cap space right now. Everybody's been talking about paying Aiden Hutchinson. We talked about some of the other players like Jamison Williams, that may have to get a paycheck towards the end of this year if they can even afford that. So they can't really just go out and get somebody in free agency either. So yeah, it's going to be really tough. I mean, Graham Glasgow at least has been on this line and played with them. But how much better can he really be? I don't know. He was kind of like the sixth guy that got thrown into a starting role the past couple of years. So yeah, it's a tough situation for the Lions, especially when you lose both your coordinators. Now, like the offensive line, which was pretty much the best in the NFL, if not very close to it. Yep. There's a lot of question marks with it now.
Yeah, no. And to point out, they also have to replace right guard Kevin Zeitler, who, of course, left in free agency to go to Tennessee. So 2 big holes on that offensive line. We'll see what Dan Campbell and the rest of the Detroit Lions do in that situation. Shifting gears now, of course, we've got some baseball to talk to. The Whitecaps coming off a franchise first this past week, their first ever 6-game sweep of the Dayton Dragons. We kind of talked about that Dayton was sort of that team towards the bottom of the standings that you really wanted to see the Whitecaps impress you guys, and they kind of did that. I mean, 4 of their 6 games in that series, they hit double-digit runs. Pretty impressive stuff from the Whitecaps this past series.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And that's what you have to do to bad teams, right? When you're a really good team. And the Whitecaps are red hot. You know, they scored double digits in 4 of the 6 games against that team. The run differential was like 62-21. It was just silly, you know. But like I said, good teams do that to bad teams. And, you know, as we were going to talk about with the Tigers, every Whitecap was hitting. Josue Briseño obviously had the 3 home run game. In that series, he batted .375 with 6 hits, 8 runs, 12 RBIs, and 5 home runs. And he also stole home plate, which he became the first major leaguer ever to hit 3 home runs in a game and steal home. So just amazing what the Whitecaps are doing right now. They are by far the best team in the Midwest League. And we could possibly say the all minor league. Yeah. But yeah, they're just playing really well right now, and they're inching closer and closer to that playoff spot.
I believe that was like Josue Briseño. He got the Player of the Week award. I think that's the second time he already has this year.
Oh, if he didn't, then there would have been a travesty.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been
I was going to say that.
I mean, 5 home runs in 1 week. That's insane.
Right.
So yeah, I think the power he's showing right now. I mean, the 3-in-1 game. I've been covering the Whitecaps for like 7 years now, and I don't think I've seen 3 home runs in 1 game. So yeah, it's pretty awesome to see the potential outside of Max Clark, because everybody's kind of talks about Max Clark because he's the only guy. Obviously, the other person we need to mention too is Kevin McGonigal. I mean, through his 36 at bats so far this year, he's been hitting .500. He has 8 doubles. I mean, this is a guy just coming off an injury, and that's like already how he's hitting at this level. So we've talked about multiple times with some of these guys and when are they going to get moved up. I don't really think I think they could get moved up right now. I think, Dean, what your theory that you've kind of had all year about them like keeping them down and just playing together and maybe like pushing for the playoffs is starting to seem more and more believable, because I don't like these guys definitely could be playing AA baseball right now. They're just tearing up high A baseball, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And I don't think any of the fans that come out to the stadium at LMCU ballpark are going to be upset about it. I mean, you can hear it in Dan Hasty's voice. He's definitely not sick of it. Nate Wangler, they're both good friends of mine. They don't even know what to believe when they're calling these games because of all these moments they're having late in games to get wins. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun to watch so far, no doubt about it. And Josue definitely deserves all the accolades he's been getting, and it's been awesome to see Kevin come back from his injury and hit the way he's been hitting.
Yeah, I don't think it's much of a surprise with Briseño. He won the Triple Crown in the Arizona Fall League before the season. So like I've talked to him in person and seen him. He is just an intimidating dude. He's a big guy and he's strong, and you know, he kind of reminds you. He comes from the same city, I think, as Cabrera. So he just has a lot of qualities of Miggy. You know, just big, strong, and you know, obviously he can knock the ball out of the park. So excited for what he brings. You know, like we said, we always talk about Max Clark and McConaughey, but like this is another guy who could be have a major impact, you know, on the Tigers in the next 2-3 years.
No, I think this is like when you think back to the Al Avila days too. Like a lot of the prospects they would draft. Obviously, the Tigers got a lot of high draft picks for a lot of years when he was in charge because they were so poor. Obviously, some of them are turning out now, but I still think this is really proving more and more that more of that credit goes to Scott Harris than Al Avila, because I mean, look at these 3 right now down here. I mean, these are his guys, and they're absolutely tearing it up. He made that trade last year for Tharon Lorenzo. He's already been doing good up at AA. So yeah, it's awesome to see all these players turning out, and it's caused a logjam in the system. But that's something you can't complain about.
Absolutely. You know, that was going to be kind of my next question for the two of you, because Dean kind of said it. A lot of focus is always on Max Clark and Kevin McGonigal, but Briseño, I mean, an incredible stretch of games and an incredible season just overall, kind of getting, you know, a little bit lost in the pile of riches that the Tigers organization really have right now. I mean, with him kind of popping off like how he's been, is he kind of maybe moving forward, maybe kind of inching as sort of that top prospect now, or the guy that you think might be moving up first?
I think everybody develops at different levels. I don't really. I think it's always so hard to tell at this level, like who's actually going to end up being the best player.
Right.
That's why sometimes that top prospect that everybody wants to see, like Max. I mean, Max has done pretty good himself. It's not like he's having a bad season or anything. It's just, yeah, obviously Josue is on a hot streak right now, and it's hard to say that he hasn't been the best player at this level. Now, will that translate to AAA? Will it translate to AA? Like those questions, I think will be answered as they move up, and I think that's why eventually you will see these guys move up, but. Yeah, right now it's pretty obvious who's having the best season, and it's Brasenio.
Mm-hmm. Dean, kind of same thoughts there.
Yep, same kind of thoughts. No one really talked about him before the season. Obviously, they talked about Max and they talked about Kevin, but obviously he's making a name for himself right now, and it won't surprise me. Once they clinch the playoffs, in the second half, if we do see some of these guys kind of move up to AA and see what they can do there.
No, for sure, and credit to Max too. He's very vocal on Twitter. He's been all about Josue's run and stuff, and tweeting and hyping him up and everything. And he's still tweeting about the Tigers and everything. So yeah, they all seem to just love playing with each other. I'm sure that if they weren't to move up with each other, I'm sure they probably would be heartbroken because they probably want to kind of continue this journey as long as they can together.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's always good to see the whole team. I mean, it helps when you're winning and kind of popping off and everything like that. But knowing that the team is as close-knit as they are, really at all levels, I think is a good thing. The Erie Seawolves are also in first place right now. The Whitecaps, of course, are currently 8 games up in the East Division of the Midwest League. They are going to be taking on the Lake County Captains over at LMCU Ballpark for 6 games in that series. So hopefully they continue their winning ways there. Now moving up to the big league club, the Detroit Tigers, again, still on top of the AL at least right now, and still performing really well. Andy, I know that we were talking a little bit before about Dylan Dingler, your boy. I want you to kind of start this conversation with just what you've seen from him, especially over this recent stretch.
No, I think it's just something that Detroit Tigers fans need to start paying attention to, because when it comes to the AL, there's only one player that has better stats than him, and it's Cal Raleigh. The next one would be Alejandro Kirk. So when you start kind of thinking all-star game, someone who might make it, I think Dylan Dingler really should be considered to be in there because he has more home runs at 6. He has more RBIs at 24. He has a batting average of 296, which is higher than Kirk's. His slugging percentage is 469, which is 30 points over the league average. He has just been slugging the ball every time he gets the chance. And yeah, he's only played in 44 games. So he hasn't he started the season behind Jake Rogers. He's obviously taken that starting job over. And not to mention defensively, he's been throwing a lot of runners out. He's done a great job with the pitching staff. They didn't really get to work with as much until the start of this year. Obviously in spring training they do a little bit, but I don't think that any of these Detroit Tigers pitches is expected him to be catching them as much. So I just think what he's been able to do so far has been really, really impressive, and it shouldn't get overlooked. Obviously the All-Star game is one of those things where it's a lot of popularity and names and votes, and not a lot of people know who Dylan Dingler is. But if you're watching the Detroit Tigers every night, who are the best team in baseball, if they didn't have Dylan Dingler, I don't think they'd have some of the wins that they have. So yeah, I just think he deserves to get a better shot and a better chance at maybe getting a look at being an All-Star this year if he keeps it up all the way till July.
Absolutely. And I do want to get into just, again, those all-star picks as we're about a month away, a little bit over a month away from the all-star break there, and, get your guys' thoughts on that. But another thing about the Tigers is that we saw this week that Jackson Jobe also added to the injured list. Tigers are now down 2 of their starting pitchers from that opening day lineup. Is this a cause for concern, obviously, but how big of a concern is it for the Tigers right now in that starting rotation?
I think they'll be fine. They're obviously they have their chaos at times when they're going to bring in their bullpen's just so good. The other night Montero, and then I think 3 or 4 others shut out Kansas City 1-0. And so obviously it wasn't one of your top starters on the mound in that game, and you're still able to get the win. Obviously you lost 1-0 with Skubal the night before, but they're going to have the pieces to be able to kind of have success despite having these injuries. Right now they're in great shape, obviously. They're finding ways to win. They're beating the bad teams. Obviously, the White Sox Monday night, just like the Whitecaps are doing. So they're finding ways to win with obviously some injuries. It was great to have Parker Meadows back on Monday night.
Yes.
4 for 4, 2 for 4, on base 4 times. So, we've talked about it so much where every single Tiger right now is contributing to the success of that team. And I was going to say something about Dingler. If he doesn't get the All-Star for that play last night with McKinstry, off the little tip, if you guys saw that highlight Monday night, the tip to McKinstry, that was just crazy. I don't know what to say, but no, like they're just playing really well as a team, and I think they're going to just be able to deal with some of the injuries and some of the setbacks that they're having, and they're still going to be able to move forward.
It's hard to argue with that. I mean, just because of the fact that they didn't have Parker Meadows or Wenzel Perez, or obviously Matt Vierling is back in the aisle, unfortunately for them. But yeah, they were able to weather that storm and have the record they have right now of 41-20. So I mean, yeah, they've just kind of been unbelievable. Or 40-21, sorry. But it's just, yeah, it's with the pitching staff when it comes to that. It is a little concerning to me just because of the fact that eventually I don't think the Tigers bullpen's been the problem issue for me. So if they have to keep throwing a lot of bullpen days against not the White Sox, I mean, obviously we'll see how the series goes. Can't take any game for granted, but it feels like they'll win at least 3 or 4 of these. But yeah, it's just, I mean, Jackson Job's injury, no clue how long that's going to last. Obviously Reese Olson has got the middle finger that's been hurting him. He hasn't been able to throw his changeup, so until he can throw that, he can't come back. I think it would be less concerning if Alex Cobb, who actually made a rehab start for the Whitecaps, apparently that didn't go as well for him, and he was still laboring to get through even just a couple of innings. So if he was about to come back, like people kind of thought he could at maybe this time of the year, I wouldn't say it's as big of a concern, but I think you need to get Job or Reese back soon to at least take some of that pressure off right now, because you're not against some of the better teams. You're probably not going to get away with, some of the arms that, like Bo Brisky is starting tonight. He hasn't exactly had the best season so far this year. So it's just those kind of guys starting against better teams. I have a little bit of concern for it, but none of the injuries are season ending from the looks of it, at least right now. Obviously, sometimes with pitchers, those things can linger, but right now the concern isn't super high just because of the part of the schedule they're at.
Right. I was going to say, if you never want to have injuries, but if you're going to have them when you're playing the White Sox, is probably the best time to have them.
No doubt.
At least maybe the Rockies would probably be a little bit better there. But, you guys touched on it. Obviously, Joe being out is going to be a little bit of a cause for concern, at least for the time being, waiting to see how long that injury is going to last. Right. Last I checked, I believe the reports were hoping to have him back sometime after the All-Star break. So we'll see about that. But speaking of the All-Star break, we're going to talk about the All-Star game and which Detroit Tigers you guys think are probably going to make it. I think we can safely say that Tarek Skubal is going to be there.
Yeah,
he might even be the starting pitcher for the American League in that
might
game.
get some votes.
Yeah, well, maybe a few. But who else on this Tigers team do you guys really envision? Obviously, we want all the guys to go there, but is there a player, maybe even 2 players on this current roster that you think will be there in Atlanta next month?
Dylan Dingler.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I know Andy's going to say Dylan Dingler.
I don't think
You had to take his answer.
I honestly
kidding,
don't
I'm
think
kidding.
I don't think Dylan Dingler will make it because unfortunately his
Yeah.
name isn't. It's a popularity vote
Right.
a lot of the time, but
Yeah. No, I'm going to go with Riley Green. He's obviously been hitting the ball very, very well. Obviously, just the contributions that he makes to this team, and he's heating up, and he's batting over 300, I think, over his last 2 weeks, something like that. But he's just been a really consistent bat in that lineup the entire season. And then I'm going back to my boy Will Vest. He closes out games, he gets the outs when needed, and there's a lot of teams right now in the majors who struggle with their closers, as I've talked about earlier. But like Will Vest seems to get out of, even when he does get in the jams, he seems to get out of them. And obviously, it's so important to have that back end, that closer to close out games, because we know how hard it is to close out games in the majors.
Yeah, no question about that. Sometimes it comes down to the popularity side of the vote, but you can make a lot of argument for a lot of Tigers to make it because of how they've been hitting so far this year. But I think one is Spencer Torkelson. I think he should still get some consideration for making the All-Star game. Right now, he leads the team in home runs, the 14. The Tigers are in the top 10 in power. So obviously he's been a huge part of that. And also just driving in runs too. He's leading the team in that right now as well. So yeah, it's hard to say that he couldn't have a chance to do it. I think if he's able to keep the power up like at the same rate that he's been, he'll probably be at around 18, 19 home runs by the All-Star game. If he's hitting that many runs in for the team that's the best in the league, it's kind of hard to argue that he shouldn't have a chance to be an All-Star. So for the season he's been having and being one of the favorites to be the comeback player of the year right now, I definitely think I could see him making it, just being a former 1-1 pick, and maybe some people want to get to know more about him. I could see him maybe getting voted in realistically, but I love your pick of Will Vest too. I mean, how can't you deny it right now? With the way he's been pitching at the end of the bullpen for them, it's been the one guy no matter what. I mean, Tommy Kahnle's been pretty good himself, but Will Vest has been the guy every time they put him in, he seems to get a save. So yeah, it's hard to argue that would be the other guy that I think actually will make it, just because he's been dominant in the back end of their bullpen.
Yeah, and typically you see, let's say the Tigers have their 20 wins before let's say they're at 55, pushing 60 wins, which would be crazy at the All-Star break. you know, a lot of times the best teams get the most players on those all-star rosters.
Yeah, for sure.
So like 4, I won't say 5, but maybe 4 Tigers won't be out of the question.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely hoping for the higher end of those Tigers making it to the All-Star game. Well, time will tell. We'll wait and see. And, of course, we're going to be talking all about that once those All-Star rosters are unveiled. Now we're going to switch things up a little bit and actually not talk about the sports going on here in West Michigan. We've got 2 championship rounds that are set to kick off later this week. They're happening after we're recording this, but before this actually airs. So some of this conversation might be a little bit dated. We're going to try and keep it as close to what we can expect going into these series as well. Of course, we're talking about the NBA Finals. The Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder are facing off. We're also going to be talking about the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. I want to talk about the NBA Finals first. Where do you guys kind of see this matchup? There was a lot of talk on social media about this not being a very entertaining finals. I personally could not disagree more. If you've watched the playoffs, Indiana's got probably the best offense in the league, and Oklahoma City's got just a ferocious defense. Watching them destroy my Grizzlies in that first round was nightmare-inducing, honestly. So going into this finals, going into Game 1 on Thursday, what's sort of the key matchup that you guys are kind of focusing in on? Is it a certain player matchup or a certain side of the ball that you guys are really going to be focusing on?
I think it's SGA and Halliburton.
Yeah.
You know, I think the point guard matchup is going to be very, very key in this series. I actually agree with you. I think it's going to be a very entertaining series. You know, I've watched a lot of the NBA playoffs, obviously with the Pistons and the Knicks. But, you know, I watched a lot of that Knicks-Pacers series. And, you know, the Knicks were favored to win that series, and now Pacers are a big underdog against Oklahoma City. So I don't know. I like the pace of both teams. You're right, Oklahoma City does play better defense, but I think the matchups of the point guards is going to be very, very key in this game. Both of these guys are on the big stage for the first time in their careers. So like we'll see. I'm happy for that. One of these teams is going to have an NBA championship, right? Like we've seen so many times through the last 10 years with Golden State and Boston, just the same old teams competing for the NBA title, and now we got Oklahoma City and 2 young, up-and-coming teams. So I'm excited to watch this series.
Yeah, I think for me it's the bench because obviously Indiana was able to kind of wear out the Knicks, and the Knicks have had a problem with depth. So for me, I think it was really impressive to see how deep Indiana really is. But I think on the other side of the ball, when it comes to Oklahoma City, obviously everybody talks about SGA, but they have a lot of good players that come off their bench, maybe not as many guys that play key roles. So I think whatever, you know, maybe the more talent you could say for OKC coming off their bench, Indiana maybe has more players they play in rotation. Whichever one is able to shine a little bit more, I think has a better chance to take this series. And with OKC, the way they've just been playing right now, it's hard for me to imagine that anybody could play with that team for more than a few games. So I have OKC taking it pretty quick, not in 4, but I think they could take it in 5 or 6. Really?
Yeah, that was going to be kind of what I wanted to talk about was those predictions. You're saying Oklahoma City in 5 or 6 games.
Yeah, I think so. It's been hard to argue how they've been able to play all year. I think their team chemistry is better than most teams in the NBA, and they kind of just play together and have been able to have fun while doing it. You can literally see it in the floor when they're going out there. So, and if this isn't the year for SGA, I don't know when it would be necessarily. Because I mean, the window just closes so quick at this level of sports. So I just feel like this is going to be it for them, and I think that they just have the overall better team, better players overall 1 through 8. I think that'll be a big difference in the series.
Dean, do you have any predictions for this series?
I do, and I'm going to disagree with Andy again.
Okay.
Which has been normal lately in this podcast.
It's better. I like it this
I'm going to go with the Pacers, and I'm going to tell you why. They were not favored against Cavs. They're not favored against the Knicks. Okay, they're underdogs, and I think they love that role. And I think they're playing with confidence. Pascal Siakam had a great series, obviously Eastern Conference Finals MVP. And, you know, they have some guys coming off the bench who can play defense, knock down shots. So I'm going to say it's going to be the Pacers in 6.
I think they
6
want it
games,
that way.
okay.
I think they want to be the
Pacers
underdog.
in 6.
Yeah.
They do. I think they're gonna thrive off of that.
Right. No, definitely. I mean, I've got the Pacers in 7 just because I want it to go 7 games because
Phil.
you want to have these 2 top teams obviously competing against one another. But again, I just think Indiana just feels like that team of destiny. You know, if you told me that Oklahoma City was going to win it last year, I would probably say, yeah, they're the team of destiny. They had all these wins. They've, you know, been stockpiling all these draft picks. It's about, you know, time for that return on investment. But seeing what they did last season, kind of falling short of that goal, and you know, even though they've been kind of dominating, you got to think that maybe is going to hit them a little bit. Like maybe they think that they are better than the Pacers and kind of sleepwalk through those first couple of games. And especially with those games happening in Oklahoma City, you don't want to drop any of those first 2 games for sure.
No, Pacers have been great at, obviously, on the road, right?
Yes.
They won the first 2 in New York, and those were such key games. So, yeah, I agree with you. If they'll probably split, I think, in Oklahoma City. That would be a big confidence boost for the Pacers, knowing that they can win in Oklahoma City and possibly win the series.
Yeah.
No, I mean, coming into the playoffs too, when we kind of were talking back about the Pistons, that's the team that I didn't want the Pistons to play in the first round.
Right.
Yeah,
So
right.
it doesn't surprise me that they got here. For me, I guess at this point, I just think that OKC has the better roster. So I don't think they're gonna look ahead of Indiana at this point. I don't know how you really look ahead of a team in the finals. I think that they probably believe they deserve to be here too. So it could be a better series than I anticipated being, but that's just what I see happening.
Yeah.
So.
Well, hopefully it's at least an entertaining series. The good thing about this series, I don't really have a dog in the fight, so obviously I'm just looking forward to some really, really great basketball. Let's shift now over to the other championship series that is set to kick off tomorrow. It is the Stanley Cup final between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers, a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup final. Did you guys think we were going to be here again for part 2 of this series, kind of going into this this past season?
I mean, it was definitely possible. And then I think when, Dallas and Edmonton kind of got the matchup they got, I thought that maybe that would be a better series than it was.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it seems like a thing of destiny. I think Florida was really, really surprising to make it this far and do it as dominantly as they did as well. Usually when a team in the NHL makes it to the Stanley Cup, they don't really repeat. So it was definitely crazy to see, but yeah, this is awesome to see the rematch. And I guess for me right now, it's like, if not now, when will it be for Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman, these players that have been around since last year? They go to Game 7, losing that heartbreaking way. I mean, a lot of people probably seen the videos from the locker room, them just being devastated and stuff. It's kind of hard to believe that they won't get the job done this time around. But they've obviously been there. They've done it. They know how to beat Edmonton. So this just sets up to be another series that's going to go to 6 or 7 games, but I got to give this one to the best player in hockey. I just think maybe best player ever by the end of it. If he doesn't win it right now, it's only going to get harder, I feel like. So I'm giving this one to the Oilers, I think, in the end, but it's definitely going to be a good series.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to agree with him on this
A little
one.
change of pace this time around.
Obviously, how long has it been since a team from Canada won?
Oh gosh,
It's been a minute, that's for
It's been
sure.
1990. It's been 1993.
Decades. Let's say-
1993.
That's all everybody talks about that pays attention to hockey, so it's been a
100%.
long time.
2 years
Yeah.
after I graduated from high school. 2 years out of high school was the last time. And obviously, it's talked about every single year, right?
Yes.
But I do think this is the final year. Finally, the year it gets done. Connor McDavid, obviously one of the best players in the NHL. But I am concerned about Florida, and the way they've been playing and just kind of dominating teams throughout this playoff run. That kind of scares me as well. But I'm going to say it's going to be Edmonton in 6.
Yeah, what a run for Florida hockey.
Yeah,
out of
right.
nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, Tampa Bay was so dominant for so long, and then all of a sudden the Panthers are like, yeah, we're just going to be this good. You got this warm weather state, and they get hockey too.
Yeah.
Almost seems unfair, but yeah, I'm definitely cheering for the team from Canada. So
yeah, it would be awesome to see a Canadian team obviously win, and Connor McDavid definitely deserving of that. Plus, the Panthers won last year. I think you got to spread the love a little bit. Do you guys think it's going to be as kind of competitive as we saw in last year's final?
I think so, 100%. I don't think either one of these teams are going to give in to the other one.
Yeah.
I think Florida wants to repeat just as bad as they want to get back at them over in Edmonton. So it's hard to imagine that this one doesn't go to 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, a little bit of bad blood maybe left over from
No doubt.
last year.
Agree.
For sure. All right, awesome. Well, we're going to be keeping a close eye on both those series as well as everything sports related happening here in West Michigan. Dean and Andy, thank you so much for stopping by, and we'll see you guys again next week.